building relationships with customers. As you're in the day-to-day grind, you got to spend more on your brain than you do on the rest of your body. If you just want to work on cars, you should not be a business owner. If you're feeling beat up, wore out, actions is what will motivate you. Take action on things that'll actually get you results, and motivation will follow when you start to get some wins.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. I'm Kelsey Outram with Lift Auto Repair Marketing, and today we have an amazing guest. We have Phil Webster out of Teutopolis, Illinois. He runs 2 auto repair facilities along with an auto sales facility. Mainly the auto repair side, I think, is your bread and butter, your passion there. But we'll definitely hit on all those things. But thank you so much, Phil, for being here with me today.
Absolutely, I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to hopefully help another shop owner along the way, or maybe give them a little bit of information that helps them somehow. And if that's where my passion has been and why I'm in the auto repair business, is because I love helping people, and that passion has helped my businesses grow over and over.
Yeah, I love to hear. I think that goes a long way for a lot of owners in auto repair. And so sometimes people forget that's why they started this to begin with. I love that is your focus, and you are a coach as well for other shop owners. I love that. But in terms of your introduction just to the industry in and of itself, where does your story start?
Man, this goes back, if you really want to know where it started, like 1984, and I was 10 years old or something, which did the math on that. That would be 1987. Somewhere between 84 and 87, I was helping. I grew up on a small farm, youngest of 14, was helping my brother install a transmission in his 2-wheel drive F-150. We didn't have the nicest equipment on that farm like I do in my shops today. And so we were using an old H-Farmall that had a scoop on the front of it that is not so smooth operating to lower an engine and transmission down into the truck. And it's 2-wheel drive, so we were going engine, transmission, all. He said, just ease out on the clutch and I'll guide it down in there. And I eased out on the clutch because the clutch worked so good, and put her right through the windshield. And that's how my automotive repair love began.
That's amazing. That's a great story to discuss. Start love for it, and then obviously you went to fix them from there. And then in terms of when the shop journey sort of started, like where did you start?
So I worked in some repair shops around Effingham. In high school, I had a DO job working at a repair shop, and it was out of necessity more so than love. I always enjoyed business, but it was easy to, growing up on a small farm, you had to repair equipment, whatever. I could fix things a little bit. I'm not going to say I'm a master mechanic, but I could figure things out by force, because what's the cheapest way to fix something? Do it yourself, kind of, sometimes, not always. But I could find work pretty easy. And just to explain that, how I got that DO job was I was fueling up at a gas station, and guy pulls up next to me, and I was 15 years old at the time. I guess I had been 16 because I was driving. And my now wife was sitting in the passenger seat, and guy pulls up next to me. Hey, are you looking for a job? We're needing somebody, down at the shop to help out and stuff. And my girlfriend at the time was like, are you kidding me? We're getting gas and you get a job offer. What the heck? I've applied at like 5 places and I can't get a part-time high school job. And you just have randomly pumping gas and get an offer for, so, but it's small town, and that's, led to my first automotive job. And I said, sure. And so anyhow, but it led me into the automotive business. From there, I also worked at a salvage yard in our area that's pretty nationwide known for running a clean operation over the years and stuff. And so I worked there a few years, went back to college as an adult when I was 22, 23 years old, and got a business education degree. And I actually started the car lot while working for my father-in-law, who still owns a shop a half mile down the road from my current shop. Started my car lot there while I was working for him and going to college. And then decided to stay in the business instead of going and becoming a teacher, and grew the car lot. And in 2010, moved down the road from my father-in-law's shop. And that's when I got into auto repair business then.
So, right. How did that conversation go in terms of just right down the street and almost competing thing in a little bit?
So it was a tough situation. I was 25, 26 at the time, had worked for him on and off a few different times. At that point was service advising for him and teching for him and selling some cars there. And had an agreement to buy him and he had a partner that was 50-50 out. And so it got really messy because I was ready to move forward with it and they were not. And so anyhow, if you have those kind of family situations in your shop, they weren't the best at communicating with each other and or me. And so it just created a lot of animosity, and you don't have to have it that way. But if you're in that situation, definitely you have to have good communication within a relationship, if it's family business or if it's not family business. But the family situation makes it so much more important, because a lot of times people just decide to close off. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to, every time we try to talk about it, it gets heated. And I become the buffer over the years between my father-in-law and his partner. And if you're in that situation, that's also a tough situation, because I was constantly just trying to figure out, hey guys, this can be good for all of us. We just have to get on the same page, stay on the same page, and communicate. And because sometimes you can start getting a feeling, and that feeling is likely false or not all the way real, that, oh, he's trying to take more money than I'm getting, or he's doing more of the work than I'm doing. And we may not all be seeing how much money everybody's taking or getting paid, or we might not be seeing how much work everybody's putting in at different times throughout a 24-hour period. I can tell you myself as an owner, my employees don't see 90% of the work I do. And I struggle with that sometimes, because, they're only seeing 10% of my activity and the work that I do. And are they thinking, geez, this guy never even comes to work. What the heck's wrong with him? I own more of this place than he does. I should be getting paid more because he's not even working. And so whether it's family or not, I still have to deal with those situations with my employees. And that's why I wanted to talk about how hard it can be to be a shop owner, because it's really hard. And if you close yourself off from your employees, it's going to become harder every day. And you know what, Kelsey? As hard as it is, owning and running a shop is so simple. Making it profitable is really so simple. It's not easy. It's hard. And you got to be willing to, look at things in that manner, and you have to take action. You have to communicate, and you have to work on your leadership skills in order to be a successful shop owner.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. It's great to see that you got to the point of understanding, as an owner, the different steps that you're going, and we're definitely going to dig into that. But just to like level set for every, like your first shop, how big it is, and how big is it, and how many people, like employees, do you have kind of on your team?
So I have 10 or 12 employees there, 3 service advisors, and 6 or 7 technicians, a couple GSs. I also have a car salesperson there. And then I have 2 people in what I'll call my corporate office that do all the accounting and HR stuff for both locations. And then I have, coming from a big family, I've got 4 brothers that help me out on the car lot side, or going to get parts when you have that random, we can't find an engine, there's one here, or we can't find this part, we got the dang thing car tore apart, taken up a bay, and the closest part we could find is 50 miles away or whatever, and we got to get this thing off the lift so we can get to other jobs. I got 4 brothers that are either retired or semi-retired that, you know, don't have anything to do, so I put them back to good use in the society.
Yeah, actually, I love that phrase. Put them back to good use in society. So, are you like the youngest of the brothers then, or?
I'm the youngest. Period.
Wow.
So there's 25-year stretch between me and my oldest sibling, which is my sister Maria, also known as Sis. Yeah.
Very cool. So then, in terms of now you've built quite, and how many lifts do you have at this?
So that shop, we got 9 lifts, 9 2-post, and an alignment lift, a few flat bays in a detail area where we do QCs and wash and vacs, as well as detail in the car lot cars.
Perfect. That's super cool. And so then, was the building always this big, or did you kind of, as like when you took it over, it was a little bit smaller and you kind of scaled over time?
So when I bought the building, it was a 50 by 80, and I think that's about 4,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. I've done 2 additions since then, built on what is the service side, front counter, waiting area in 2012. And then in 2014 did a what I'll call a new shop addition that was I think it's 64 by 96. Wow. And there's 10 bays back there, a really nice break room, and just a really, really nice shop.
Very nice. That's amazing. And so in terms of now you've built and you scaled, you have these people, what would you say is your like ownership or management style, if you had to describe that?
My style is to I'm bad at black and white, so I'll call it a very gray style. I'll call it a coaching style, that I give everyone the freedom to make mistakes, to make their own decisions, and try not to do harm in correcting, by saying, hey, you did that wrong. I try to say, hey, you did a great job. If I was in your shoes, I may have made a little different decision, but I would may have went like this direction, and we could have come out a little bit better off, but I still think you did a great job, and I applaud you for making the decision, because sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, because, oh, what's Phil going to think of this? It's okay if you make a mistake. You know, I'm going to tell you what I thought about it, and encourage you to do better in the future, those kind of things. And then I guess to explain on that further, I like to dive into the numbers. And so I follow the book Traction a lot. And so I have a weekly leadership team meeting with my managers and ask them to take all of those discussions back to the service advisors, to the techs, and really try to not have a top-down approach really, because the basics is what's going to make it easier to be a good operator of a repair shop. And so if I can get the managers good at teaching the basics and, keeping everyone within the guardrails of how we want to operate, that's kind of how I manage. Hopefully that makes sense. One of the things that I say to my people all the time is, hey, you don't really work for me. You work for the customer. The customer's our boss. So as long as you're trying to take care of the customer, that's the way I would approach it anyhow. So as long as you're trying to take good care of the customer, and yes, we can't give away the farm while we're taking care of the customer every time, or we're not going to stay in business. I'm not going to be able to give you raises. So we have to find this happy medium where we're offering great service and the customer is happy to pay us what we need to make a good profit, to make the shop sustainable. And so that's kind of my approach to it.
I love that, and I think you mentioned traction. For those of you that don't know, I think it's right here on my shelf somewhere. But by Gino Wickman, he talks about EOS. Yep, there it is. So it's a very good book. I'm curious. And EOS stands for Entrepreneur Operating System. Again, any small business, I'm probably going to implement it this year, like officially implement it. But I'm curious, how long have you had like that process ingrained in your organization?
So a couple years ago is when I was introduced to it and started putting it in play.
Then did you self-implement, or did you have an?
I self-implemented.
Okay.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. And then obviously throughout that process, and then now you have a coaching-based style, which I like a lot. But nothing is ever perfectly smooth. I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of different difficulties and challenges as an owner. I'd love to dig into kind of some of those examples in terms of what are some of the big, and maybe monumental is not the best word, but some big game changers for yourself as an owner, where you're like, hey, I had to overcome this challenge. This is the process that I did. It may not have been 100% right, but this is what I learned from it. Because then we're going to keep kind of building that traction in a sense to get to how other owners can be great owners. I think at this point right now, obviously you're still working on continually evolving and being a great owner, but we're a lot closer than probably it was in the very beginning. So I'd love to maybe, if there's a few examples that we can maybe start with.
So, there's a lot. A couple things I'll say. I bought a car wash next door to my father-in-law's shop because I was going to buy his shop. It was on the very corner of the two main streets there. I wanted that corner lot. That was a disaster. And I wasn't smart enough to, so I bought that in 2008, and in 2010 is when I moved down the street to my current shop. I should have just sold it at whatever loss I had to take at that time, to not have something pulling me away from my shop that was not profitable. I hung on to it, wound up spending a few $100,000 putting in a new automatic, and this is in a town of 1,200. A town of 1,200 cannot support a car wash. I'm just telling you, to make any money at all. The car wash equipment from 2008 till today is also extremely gone up. The car wash equipment it's not just a bucket of water and soap and a brush. It's pretty complicated inside that equipment room. And that was a huge loss. That money would have been better spent pouring into my current shop and growing it, and or expanding to others much sooner. I also had a trucking business that was went really well for a couple of years, and the trucking industry is like a whole nother animal. The repairs on trucks, wow. And we were specialized in hauling cars. I thought that went along with my current auto repair and car sales business. And it's just a lot of liability. And anyhow, I wound up losing lots of money through that process, as well as 5 years of my life that the last 3 of those years where I was just losing money month after month after month, and plus putting way too much effort into a failing business when I could have been putting my efforts into the auto repair businesses that I knew and were successful at already. So it stunted my growth in auto repair by focusing on these other 2 businesses that I just never should have done.
Yeah, like that reminds me a lot of have you read the book The One Thing?
Yeah.
And so like that, in terms of like as an entrepreneur, I think we all like we just sometimes see that shiny object and we're just like,
yes,
oh wait, what? I think that would be a really good idea though. Like you just almost forget what's currently working and how to make sure that keeps funneling its way. Then you just get distracted, and it happens to all of us. And I think that's a great point where like you've learned like multiple businesses that now we're failing businesses, probably should have pulled out way sooner, but it is hard to like kind of put blinders on at times and not seeing those things. But I think that's what definitely separates the great owners from others in terms of like understanding and knowing when to like officially make that leap of like, okay, now I can get another door. Maybe it shouldn't be a completely different business. Maybe it's just another shop that then you can keep growing and scaling and still mastering in this industry before peeling off and doing something different.
Yeah.
So I definitely love that. So that's a great challenge to overcome. So those I guarantee lots of other owners are dealing with the same exact thing where they're like, oh my goodness, I see that this other business, or I saw something on Facebook or like an ad popped up. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I should try and do that. Like, no, take a step back. Let's focus on drilling down on that. So that's a great example. Any other big challenges that you think we should dive into and hit on?
There was a time where I made a decision. I was at a point where I was struggling, keeping my head above water. And so I think as you grow your business, you get to a point where it's bigger than you. You've never handled an operation the size. You've never handled the problems that come with going from, 1 or 2 employees to 5 to 10 employees, and the expenses, double, triple again.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this snowball effect. How fast is this thing going to go? And is the income and profit going to be as fast as the bills are coming?
Yep.
And I got to this point where I was hunting for some outside help, and getting outside help is good, but I got a hold of some outside help that was not so good. And this guy come by and said all the right things at the right time when I was stressed out, trying to deal with all these things and trying to make sense of them. And I had no idea what I was doing, and how to keep profitable, and was also in the, I have to be the cheapest in town. I'm the new kid on the block. When I started my shop, every other shop in town had been in business 15, 20 years plus, and there was only 1 or 2 shops that had only been in business that long. Most of them had been in business 30, 40, 50, 60 years plus, were 2nd and 3rd generation shops. And, I felt like in order to compete, I had to be the cheapest in town. And that's a tough mindset to have. And tough to be profitable if you're the cheapest in town. And I was also trying to be the fastest, no wait auto repair. We're going to, and if you're the cheapest and no wait, it creates a lot of problems in itself. But anyhow, reaching for some outside help, this guy just happened to stop by my shop I was vulnerable. I wound up paying in 6-month period $250,000 to $300,000 for some guys to come in from I don't know where. And I did get a lot of benefits. I did learn a lot. I have my in-house accountant, bookkeeper, got training from one of the guys that they sent in, was a forensic accountant. And at the time, I had no idea what a P&L was, what a balance sheet was. I was running a $1.5 million shop, plus was selling $4 million in cars a year, and had no accounting systems in place. So anyhow, in 6 months, I burned through $300,000, and although I got a lot of help from that company, in the end, I should have been able to do it a lot cheaper. And they also put my business at very much risk in the process. So when you're at that point of looking for outside help, we kind of today, that was 15 years ago, or between 10 and 15 years ago. And today we call it coaching a lot, business management training, however you look at it. It should not cost you $250,000 or $300,000 for a 6-month area. It should not even cost you $50,000 or $60,000 for a 6-month time frame. And you mentioned it earlier. I do coach for a company called ShopFix, and I've had other automotive specific training or whatever over the years. And through ShopFix, it's enabled me to meet a lot of great owners. Back in 2019, I got to go on a trip to Oman and Dubai. Wow. With 6 other shop owners, and we were going over there to visit a shop owner friend. So that was some crazy stuff that happens by meeting other shop owners. And anyhow.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that speaks to the importance of coaching, but it isn't necessarily the first coach you try is going to be the right one for you. And making sure you understand it's okay to try others. You don't have to force someone to stick. If you're just this just doesn't feel right. Yeah. Then it's okay. And you can, if you end up realizing later on that maybe that it was the right thing, you can always go back. It's not the end of the world. But just making sure that you have that liaison, I think, in my opinion, is very, very crucial to any business, especially an auto repair shop, where just having someone that has been through what you've done, or at least very, very similar situations, and being able to give you advice. Just these are the steps that I took. I mean, you don't have to take those exact steps, but at least now you have a possible solution.
Right. And whether or not, a lot of us at times is going, well, I'm doing $200,000 a month. I don't want to be hanging out with guys that are still doing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month. And yeah, you might be facing different problems, but it's still good to hang out with those guys because you can learn from each other as well. No matter whether you're doing $500,000 a month out of your one repair shop, or whether you have 6 repair shops and this guy only has 1, you can still learn from each other and help each other. And because a lot of us owners get caught up in, well, I'm way beyond that level. I don't have time to be talking and networking, so to speak, or and I think that's when I got into coaching, it scared me. I got clients that were doing $300,000 and $400,000 a month. I wasn't at that level, and I'm going, how am I going to be able to help them? And it shocked me as I got to working with them, of after one little visit, seeing them get huge benefit from it, was okay, that's how this is going to work. And every relationship that you build, and that's what, to me, being a great shop owner is about, is as you go through this, you got to build relationships on every front. your customers, first of all, and as you're in the day-to-day grind, building relationships with the customers, because I don't know, you may have on the marketing side, what does it cost to get a customer to call the shop? You may have
an open question. So it's going to depend on the avenue in which they're reaching out. It'd be like, obviously a Google ad is a different price point than a mailer, than a different price point from organic SEO. But
okay,
if I had to give a go-to range, you're probably looking from, say, $20 to $100. Like, it's like a pretty wide range, but
okay,
ideally, like the different avenues I could explain in terms of what you.
So even at $20 on the low end,
yep.
I think it's pretty highly important that when they come into the business, we build a relationship with them that's not just a transactional one-time thing. If we possibly can, make that $20 go over 10 years of getting them in. And yeah, you may have to spend money to keep them coming in, but if you build a good, solid relationship with them where they can trust you, they're going to keep coming back in. We got to do the same thing with our employees. You got to keep building trust along the way. And same thing, we have to have a good relationship with our marketing people. We have to have a good relationship with our banker, our accountant. And that's one of the things that I did a really good job of that helped me buy my biggest competitor a year and a half ago. My accountant met with the guy I was buying the shop from at least 3 different times to talk him back from saying, this deal's off the table. And if I didn't have that relationship with my accountant, it never would have happened, because he didn't have a good relationship with his accountant. And his accountant was just telling him, oh, it might cost you $1 million to sell this shop. And so you just need to not sell. And without even looking at his numbers and knowing what it was going to cost him in taxes to sell. Yes, it was going to cost him something in taxes, but his accountant was just telling me it's going to cost you $1 million to sell. Well, I wasn't paying a whole lot more than $1 million, so that doesn't make sense. If I sell for $1.5 million and I owe $500,000 on the building still, and I got to pay Uncle Sam $1 million, I'm left with nothing. So, so anyhow, in building relationships, we have to do it on all fronts so that that compounding effect makes it easier to run our business when we have. And this, if you start to work with a shop and they got a 2.2 review rating on whether it's whatever platform, you're going, oh no, this is going to be a hard job to do. Yeah. And if you build,
if I see those things, I'll be like, I don't know if we're ready to sell. Maybe just like delete out your old one and then start at a new, because that's pretty bad if you're down at that point. There's a lot more to work on.
And so anyhow, but you get what I'm saying. Sometimes that happens by accident, but as a business owner, you got to be watching those kind of things on all fronts. And if you, if an owner hasn't been, it's going to be tough for them. It's going to be it's going to be harder on them to be able to become a great owner as they go along. Instead of it being simple, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think relationships are going to be absolutely crucial. Obviously, not just with your employees and not just your customers, like kind of holistically, all the different pieces that you're working with to kind of make this operation work. And so, but obviously building relationships take time. And when people hear that, they're like, I don't have time. Like, how am I supposed to do this? So in your opinion, like how are you best delineating the time that it takes to like then build these things? Like maybe let's just start with your team. So, right. I know you mentioned like you meet once a week with kind of your managers, they drill down. Is that kind of the one meeting that happens? Do you ever do like a step down in the sense of meeting them with some of the other employees? What does that look like for you? So
yesterday I went into store 2 and did a training with my service advisors. And I call it a training. I'm trying to build the trust in me as well as I'm doing the training and saying, hey guys, how's things going? What problems are you facing on the front counter? And how can we come up with a good solution to help you? That, when it comes to advisors, man, that is a hard job when you deal with customers day in, day out. My shops, I call them high volume. That shop sometimes, on average, is probably 145 cars a week. And so when you deal in volume, it's hard to make the relationships. So a lot of the stuff we were talking about was, managing or definitely being aware of the customer's expectation. If the customer's coming in for an oil change, their expectation takes 10 minutes to do an oil change. That's what the quick lube sign says down the street, So I'm going to a top rated independent shop. Why can't they do an oil change a little bit quicker than the guy down the street, And so you have to, we went over our processes some on how to handle when you got a customer coming in with an oil change and being aware. We use a timer. So as soon as we know we got a waiter sitting in it, I want the car looked at in 10 minutes. And I give the service advisors some tools. Hey, you guys know if we don't have a bay available when they're sitting there waiting, if that timer beeps and it's been 10 minutes, you can run out, pop the hood, take a look at the tires, and, go talk to the customer, say, hey, I just wanted to do a couple things, check your oil, make sure it's where it's supposed to be before we do the oil change, get your mileage and stuff. I noticed that your tires are wearing a little funny. Do you have time for us to do an alignment check for free so we can see what's going on there with that tire wear? Building the trust with the customer, and also finding out, I got to pick the kids up in 30 minutes. Okay, I'm going to have you on the way in the next 30 minutes. I got you. Versus realizing you answered 10 phone calls, customers still sitting there going, I've been here for 40 minutes. My car's still not in the bay. It's going to be a real quick, that $20 to $100 we spent getting them in, they're not going to come back, because the next time they look up and they go, oh, I need an oil change, can't go by there, I don't have time, and they're not quick enough. So, just giving them tools through that meeting yesterday, to make their stress level go down, and to be making sure they're aware that every single transaction they have with the customer is supposed to be building that relationship and building that trust, to make their life a whole lot easier, to where it's not, the customer's not coming at them because they've been sitting in the waiting room for 40 minutes. We gotta do better than that. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's it. That speaks to it also, like in terms of the business in and of itself, like the returning customer, a lot of the times speaks to just the service that you perform. Like again, like in that relationship that you built that allows them to come back, and now the lifetime value of a customer just keeps increasing rather than like, oh, I need to keep acquiring new customers. But no, really, like you want that floor to keep increasing, because like I get really great customers, and then I can keep continuing to add on top of that base, rather than like, oh, there's this huge hole that everyone just flowing straight through, leaking straight out. And then sometimes the direction gets points in marketing, and they're like, why aren't the cars coming in? We're looking at like the ratio, like, hey, like the returning customer here, I don't know if this is something that we want to really shoot for. So I think that's important to understand the numbers as well, and all different facets of being.
To further on that a little bit, one of the things that I try to do, as I'm only in my shops 1 to 4 hours a week at each one, for the most part. But I try to go from the back to the front, talking to every employee and just simply saying, I appreciate you. You did a great job on this, trying to notice the little things. And that's hard for me because I've always been a grinder and a worker. So I've always been, when I go through that door at work, I am here to work and get stuff done. And I put my head down and I work instead of looking up and going, man, that guy's grinding over there. Look at him beating the tar out of that ball joint, and go pat him on the back and say, take a rest for a minute, or great job. I love the way you're attacking this job to get it done and get this customer back on the road. Those kind of things. Hey, another thing that's happening at my shops tomorrow. I got this masseuse coming in for Friday is employee appreciation. I don't know when this is going to roll, but tomorrow I got a masseuse coming into both shops to give my guys and gals, 20-minute massage for Employee Appreciation Day. And
very cool.
Yeah, I just anyhow. So those are the kind of things I'm doing as a shop owner to make my life easier, and we're buying lunch and stuff too. But anyhow, trying to continually build those relationships, make them stronger, and give my guys the things they need to have a stress-free, great culture, work environment.
Yeah, no, I think we keep touching on great points. And so I think the big discrepancy here from a good to a great owner, like a good owner, yes, like they're drilling down, they're doing the work, but a great owner is aware, like socially aware of everything that's going on at the shop. Like
I got to do it.
Yeah, there it is. another book that we're throwing down. Another great book.
And that's something that's also been hard to me. And I know shop owners are going to say the same thing. Man, I've never been a good reader. I'm terrible. If I read this book, it's 300 pages. I don't know what it is, but that'll take me a year to read one book. And one of the things that I figured out when hanging around with some more successful people, every one of them read way more than I did. And I can tell you about 10 years ago, I forced myself to start reading some of these books. And obviously to you as well, I'm seeing behind you a library of books that I'm guessing, kind of inspired you, changed your life.